Caller 1, can you please identify yourself so we can change your name for the public comment period?
Someone kidnapped me. I was outside the hospital leaving you a message for sex.
Regret what you said. This kidnapping tale is such a elaborate strategy. You could just stop. All right, you don't need to tell me anything. I'm a stranger to the drunken guy.
Yes, I have been known to avoid the issue at times, but that is not the case here.
Caller 1, do you hear me? Caller 1, can you hear me?
to look at sort of the president. So it's 50. So it's
So then they finally. Yeah. Yeah, I know, yeah,
When you hear the laughter, you just got to hear the laughter.
You know what I mean? It's a lot of goodies.
6:30.
I was at a meeting. So it's brilliant. It's one of the houses. So like
It's a good band. We were hot time, but it's good.
Hey, Joe. Pass the boat.
We want to put him on his chair back since she's not here, or just like spread out just a bit. Just give ourselves a
I
little.
enjoy your little backdrops there. One of them is your real picture, and others aren't. How are you doing? Steady. See you. I don't. It's quiet here. Good evening, everybody. Good to see you all.
the top of the top.
It's the top,
Yeah.
Wait a couple of years.
That's what we said. We're like, this. Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Hey, it's been 18 months, so a little rusty after virtual Zoom, taking part in helping run the government of Susquehanna Township. But so it's good to be back. I would note that two of our commissioners, Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Napper, are attending virtually. Somehow that's working, and the rest are all here. So we have a full house. I would note that before we begin and before we do an official roll call by Mr. Kratzer, that the item involving the development at 3401 and 3405 North Front Street properties, which is not listed on the agenda, but we've been granted an extension to consider that to August
the 27th.
August 27th, Mr. Kratzer. So if anybody wants to speak on that topic, just be aware. I just want to make sure that you're aware of the time extension that we have been granted. So with that being said, I would ask that we rise to say the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Marchak, and have a moment of silence.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. It is good to be back first. We're going to start off with public comment. Does anybody wish to address the board tonight? Yes, sir. Please come forward to the podium.
You want my words that are spoken about Montrose Park. You want to hear them now?
Now is the time in the meeting if you would like to say them. Just ask that you try to keep your comments to 3 minutes and state your name and address first, if you would.
My name is John Heaps, 3497 Green Street. There are 3 points I'd like to make about the development that's planned for Montrose. And second, first, the type or design of the proposed development is incompatible with the township's comprehensive plan for Front Street. If one looks at the current development south on Front Street from I-81 to I-83, there is no comparable building in the proposed construction design, and that's with good reason. New and old buildings on Front Street look like an old residential neighborhood intentionally. Even the Pesci system at the Dixon Center has complied with this look. When it had multiple parking spaces, the system built an underground garage to maintain a grassy looking front yard on Front Street. It did not elect to blacktop this area next to Front Street like the developer's plan. Development south of I-81 on Front Street is residential or has maintained a residential look. Structures north of I-81 are commercial looking, such as gas stations, restaurants, and motels. The current design building is more suited to the area north of I-81 than south of it. Second, many made a cogent argument for a traffic study that the commissioners agreed to. Equally important, however, is an environmental impact study assessing wastewater potentially released into the Susquehanna River. Third, the developer unfortunately started on the wrong footing with his future neighbors. Disagreeing with neighbors cited in the deed could have been resolved with a frank and open discussion and not in a lawsuit. Moreover, the developer would have created a better relationship with neighbors if he had held a community meeting to discuss his project from the start. He could have explained the importance of having such a structure on this particular site and show how this place was the best in his opinion. I wonder, however, if the developer is taking a suburban-like construction and placing it in an old developed neighborhood setting. In my opinion, the developer is making two site placement mistakes. First, the current design of Front Street places commercial-looking properties north of I-81 and residential-looking buildings south of it. Second, he intends to make a suburban-looking building in an old residential-looking neighborhood. Both moves permanently destroy the old neighborhood feel of Montrose Park. As you may recall from the workshop Zoom meeting, most Montrose Park residents spoke passionately about maintaining this area's residential look. Mature trees, walkable sidewalks and streets, and older houses are rare findings today. Put a strip-like building into this environment and it will irrevocably damage the core nature of Montrose Park. I don't believe Susquehanna commissioners want this decision to be their legacy for this fine old neighborhood. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Hughes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to you.
Please come forward, take the podium and name and address and try to keep your remarks to 3 minutes, please.
My name is Carl Schumann, and my wife Beth and I live at 3489 Green Street, approximately 2 blocks from the site on Front and Montrose, where Linlow and others propose building an office building that will include a dialysis center. You should be aware that my wife Beth filed a right to know request with PennDOT, asking for all PennDOT traffic studies conducted within the last 5 years for the area on Front Street between Vaughan and Edwin Streets. On June 22nd, 2021, PennDOT stated that such a study exists, but declined to release it on the basis of the deliberative process privilege. My wife filed a timely appeal with the Office of Open Records. On July 14th, 2021, PennDOT stated that it had in its possession a rough draft of a traffic study for the area in question. The study was performed by a private consultant. PennDOT states that it intends to use the consultant's draft for a safety study and again refused to release any documents. My wife's appeal is pending, and she has made it clear that she is not interested in seeing the consultant's conclusions, but is merely interested in seeing the consultant's underlying data. What is notable is that PennDOT is in the process of performing a study of the intersections in question, suggesting that it too has safety concerns about Front and Montrose. What is also notable is that PennDOT will not release the data to those of us most affected by the traffic on Front Street. One must wonder why. I would ask the commissioners, if possible, to table Linlow's waiver requests until PennDOT makes its traffic study public. I would also note that I have contacted the Chief Executive Officer and the General Counsel of Dialysis Center, which is reported to be the proposed principal tenant of the office complex. I have raised concerns about placing a dialysis center in a floodplain. I've also asked them if they are aware of local opposition to the plan, and if they are aware that Linlow is proposing a single point of ingress and egress, that it is seeking waivers relating to wastewater management, that ambulances and medical waste haulers may have difficulty accessing the property and navigating the residential streets where the dialysis center is to be located, and that local residents will be placed in jeopardy if the site is developed as proposed. To date, I have heard nothing back. In light of this, I would ask the commissioners to reject Linlow's waiver requests outright, or to place them on hold until more honest, objective, clear, and fact-based information is forthcoming from the developers of this site. Thank you.
Mr. President. Mr. President,
Mr. Miller.
it's important, I appreciate Mr. Schumann's comments and they were well delivered, but it's important for me to mention that the township really doesn't have the latitude to unilaterally place on hold its consideration of this plan. Now, there has been an extension, as the president indicated, and I certainly don't want this to be, this time for public comment, not a back and forth, but I think it's only fair to provide the public with the knowledge that we have certain time limits on under the zoning code that we have to adhere to. And so the extension is till the 27th of August. I'm not sure that we can predicate approval on a decision by PennDOT whether or not to release that study. In addition, and I should be clear, because this matter comes before the board for its approval or denial, the board is required to remain impassive and not prejudge the plan until the plan is final and before it. So they are enjoined to a certain degree from making comment. I know that they listen very closely. And we write down everything, but I want to be clear that the board, based on my legal advice, can't really comment on some of the comments being made, but they are being heard. And I need everyone to understand that that's a requirement, since again, they have to be the adjudicators of this eventually. So I apologize, Mr. President, and I apologize to the residents. I wanted to just clearly lay that out so that so it's fair for everyone to understand where they're at. So thank you.
Thanks for that clarification. Anybody else wish to address the board tonight?
I would like to.
Sure. Name, address, please, in 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Debbie Tramentine. I live at 205 Montrose Street with my husband, Michael Jeanette. And we remain very concerned about the traffic going through Montrose. This exacerbates it, but irrespective of that, we've got people blowing through the stop signs multiple times per day, every time of day. And I wanted to mention the idea that we should be considering putting a no left-hand turn during the same hours of the day that you can't turn left off of Front onto Montrose Street, because we are getting traffic from the interstate that's using it as a commuter avenue to get over to 6th. I know this because the woman that wrote the article in Harrisburg Magazine about the Montrose Street development actually saw our signs because she commutes through there from Hershey every day. So I just wanted to propose that. I'm not sure who's, I'm going to submit the same to PennDOT. I've spoken to them a few times and intend to continue doing so. I'm a little surprised to hear about this traffic study because the engineer from PennDOT from our district didn't mention that at the time. So it seems like that's likely a newer thing that's happening. They were very clear when I spoke to them that any accidents that happen there are going to be Susquehanna townships to handle. And that it's more of a burden for us as a township than it really is for them as an entity to worry about what's happening at that intersection. So thank you. I understand that there's a traffic study being conducted there now, as we've seen the line laying across the road. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Is the question acceptable?
If it's phrased in the form of a statement. Mr. Kresge, front and center.
My name is Sanford Kresge, and I live at 3500 Green Street with my wife and 5 children. If an extension was granted, and it was granted, and I'm wondering why, pursuant to what Mr. Schumann's asking, why another extension could not be granted to affect the request that he's making regarding the PennDOT study.
Mr. Kresge, I apologize. That would be at the discretion of the developer because there are time limits under the zoning hearing code. That it would be up to the developer to grant an extension over the days that we have to consider the plan. So thank you for your question. I hope I've answered it fully.
Anybody else wish to speak tonight? Yes, sir.
I guess phone question. My name is Sam Levine. I live at 3501 North 2nd Street, corner of 2nd Montrose, directly across the street from the proposed site. I don't quite understand and maybe we'll hear that this evening, what this, the scope of the traffic study is. But my concern about that is that right now, the traffic is quite different from what the traffic normally is when the state is fully in service, which, as you know, the state is not back to work right now. So I don't know if it's a question that you can answer at this point, but I'm just wondering how that traffic study will be affected and looked at in light of the state not currently being back to work.
Yeah, Mr. President, we'd be happy to address that issue, or perhaps Mr. Grubik could answer that.
The item number F on the agenda this evening is a traffic study scope of work that will be discussed at that appropriate time, and will be the consultant for the developers here who will make a presentation regarding the components of that traffic study.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
Mr. President, we may have folks that wish to make comments that are participating virtually. So when you're ready, if you could just let us know, and we can.
Sure. Is anybody in the queue?
Yes, we have Megan Carnes.
All right, Megan.
Hello, my name is Megan Carnes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I live at 200 Montrose Street, within sight of the development that everyone's been talking about. And I would just like to emphasize that this is a beautiful walking neighborhood that has wonderful sidewalks throughout it, like really good sidewalks. And that's part of what attracted me to this neighborhood and why I decided to move here. And the property in question at Front and Montrose is one of a very small number of properties in this area that does not have full, beautiful sidewalks. And they've asked for a waiver to keep it that way. And I don't understand what the point of having a zoning code is if developers can just come in and ask for parts of it to be waived. We as a community have come together and said that we want developments in this neighborhood to have that kind of standard, to have shade tree standards, to meet these standards. So that's what the developer should do. I don't think in this development, or really any in Susquehanna Township, to be honest, waivers should be granted. As a community, we come together, make the comprehensive plan, and then that plan is implemented by you as a board through the zoning code, and then that should be what it is. Otherwise, what is the point of all that planning? What is the point of all that work if anybody can just come in and ask for exceptions? So that is my message more than anything else. No waivers on this or anything else, and build the sidewalks. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Megan. Is there anybody else in the queue?
I'm just going to go down the list of participants and see if they would like to speak. Eni Murphy, would you like to provide public comment this evening?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Jade Honey, would you like to speak?
No, thank you.
Okay. Jeanette Thomas.
No, thank you.
Okay. And caller one, would you like to provide public comment? Okay, that is everyone on the Zoom call.
All right, thanks, Madison. All right. One last time, anybody else wishes to speak on this or any other topic tonight before we move on to our agenda? Oh, very good. Thank you all for your participation tonight. Moving along, approval of minutes for June 10th, 2021 and June 24, 2021 meeting.
Mr. President, I move to adopt, but then I have a question.
Second. Moved and seconded. Question?
Yeah, regarding June 10th, Mr. Kratzer, this is probably exactly what I think it is. There seems to be some formatting breaks in sentences, and so spaces, like page 3 and following. And I'm quite sure it's just a matter of formatting. My only question was maybe we're missing words.
No, I think it's just a function of the conversion. I think the document was a Word document that was converted to a PDF. So I will make sure to
That was my only thought.
make
I
that.
didn't want to adopt something that was empty, but other than that, it's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Dauphin County Local Share Municipal Grant Program. We have a couple of co-applicant requests. This is an annual program funded by gaming money, Hollywood Casino, through Dauphin County and the Office of Economic Development. We've been a partner with the county for probably a dozen years by now. And it's a very popular program in the county. And I think we have 3 requests from outside organizations that need a township or municipality to be a co-applicant in order to get the application reviewed by the commissioners, county commissioners. So we have 3 of those tonight. Is that right, Mr. Kratzer?
That is correct, Mr. President.
And the first up is ecumenical community. And Mr. Leader?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Good evening.
Hi.
I'm Michael Leader. I live at 26 Shetland Drive in Hummelstown. I'm here tonight representing the ecumenical retirement community. And we've appeared before you before and for a sponsorship of an application for a local share municipal grant. We appreciated your support. And to refresh your memory, we are located at the intersection of Harwood and Wilhelm Roads in the 5th Ward, Mr. Pine's ward, and have been there for 25 years. We're a 501c not-for-profit organization that provides personal care, licensed personal care for residents, for seniors mostly. And we have served a lot of people from Susquehanna Township over the years, people looking for a moderately priced retirement community, and 70% of our residents right now are from Dauphin County. Tonight we're asking for you to consider a project to enhance our campus security. For 25 years, our exterior doors, since the campus was first developed in the mid 1990s, we've been using keyed locks. And that served us well, except when keys are misplaced or lost, or a resident or a staff member who has been issued a key leave and don't return their key, and we can't get it back. So we know we have probably have some keys floating around, and from time to time we have to change all the locks and rekey everything. And so we're asking this in this project, we're requesting that we receive a grant to replace the keys with a swipe card system, an electronic system. And this does several things for us. One, when a person is issued a swipe card, it's issued in their name. And so when they use it to come in the building, we get a record of who they are and when they've entered the building. So if there's any question later on, we can go to that record. The other even more important thing, I think, is that when someone is no longer associated with the ecumenical community, we can immediately eliminate them from the ability to use the key system, to use the swipe card system. So there may be lost cards, but there's no damage done with the lost card. So we have 23 doors. 15 of them are exterior doors, which require one reader because they're only being swiped to leave. They come into the building. They can use a push bar to leave. But we also asking for 4 doors to be secured with this system in our memory secure, memory support neighborhood, which has secure doors. And because that is controlled both for ingress and egress, they need 2 readers. So the request is for, and the contract bid is for 23 readers for 19 doors total. 4 of those doors interior, 15 of them exterior. So we're asking, I have 25 letters of support. Can I give those to you?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you.
And be happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Michael. Does anybody have any questions? All right. You were here 2 years ago, I believe.
Yes,
for-
sir.
For the portico.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
And just as long as everybody understands, the relationship is not between the applicant and the township. It's between the applicant and the County Board of Commissioners. But we need, they require township involvement support, community support, in order for it to be reviewed by the county. So that's why Mr. Leader and others may be here tonight. Okay. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Paxton Crossing HOA.
Good evening.
Evening.
I'm Josh Millman, reside at 1801 Apple Tree Road in Susquehanna Township for nearly 30 years now. And appearing tonight as a resident of the township, as someone who cares very much about the environment, particularly about our resource of Paxton Creek, which we know has fallen in disrepair. And then, you know, you've heard about this last year about this time as well. But also as part of a group that I have been pleased to have founded or be one of the co-founders called Regenerate. This is a volunteer group of people primarily in Dauphin County or in the Harrisburg area, but some others in central Pennsylvania, are looking for large projects that we can make a significant contribution to our area to increase the vitality and the vibrancy of the Harrisburg area and the environs beyond it, the communities of Cumberland and Dauphin County, which of course includes Susquehanna Township. We have about 40 people that are involved that have been meeting for the last 18 months to talk about how one regenerates, how one looks at the world as expanding capacity rather than just going around and solving problems that we find and then, you know, go on and wait till the next problem shows up. I think if you start looking at expanding capacity, making this a better place to live, then a lot of those problems will take care of themselves or get wrapped up in some of the expansion. As a group, we've been looking for a project to start with, a model project that would have a large positive impact. And we were fortunate when Brett Peters joined our group and said, hey, you know, I've been toying with this project and working with a local HOA in Susquehanna Township to try to do something a little bit more than repairing the Paxton Creek upriver from Wildwood, but turning it into a multi-use greenway as a resource that would help the entire township and as well as, you know, Susquehanna as well as Lower Paxton, and have implications as to what might happen as it goes into the city of Harrisburg, and implications as to how other communities in central Pennsylvania could take those creek resources that we have and turn them into something that's an asset to the community, rather a headache to the local abutters. And those people have to come back every 20 years and fix the size and the erosion and have to answer the EPA problems about what's going into there as well. So our group has taken this on as our first project. We fortunately, and some of you might have been aware, we had a workshop a couple of days ago with the Paxton Creek HOA and some others, including the stormwater manager for the township, Madison Smith, and some other people in the county to talk about what possibilities we could see And what we're planning to do based on some of the stuff that we've learned on at some of the input we got from the residents is to actually bring this to all the HOAs. And as we started looking at what that creek looks like, and I'll give you a very quick presentation shortly. The tributaries in Paxton Creek just about covers the entire township. So this is a big impact. This goes way beyond what the HOA is looking for. They're very concerned about what's happening in their area, but I think it's an opportunity to really make a very positive impact and make our community a whole lot better place to live with. And not only we enjoy that, but I'm sure it'll also help property values, and everyone's interested in that too. Anyway, Brett's going to give a short presentation, then we're going to have someone speak from the HOA, and then we'll have questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I'm just holding this up because this was actually from the workshop 2 days ago where we had members of the public figuring out where the tributaries went and having some sketching exercises to help acquaint people with how it works and how swales work and how all the drainage works. It's nice to see all of you in person. This should be familiar to you as the group actually supported this last year. We were not funded, and in the debrief, we were not funded because we did not have any matching funds apparently. So one of the reasons we're here is to ask you if there may be some opportunity for matching funds. But for just a quick overview, yes, this did begin with a project with Paxton Crossing and taking a look comprehensively at how Paxton Crossing refreshes itself after
Right,
50 years.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just for purposes of the folks that are on the audio, I'm understanding they're not able to hear you. So if you wouldn't mind coming to the microphone, that would be appreciated. Or yeah, you can take that. Yep, absolutely.
We can do a little MC action here. Good. So this project began several years ago working with Paxton Crossing, which is one of the earliest developments in the area, and it's 50 years old, and they were looking for ways to refresh and reinvest in their housing stock and also the landscape there. The new emphasis on stormwater and stormwater management is very, very different in the way you design the landscape than the landscape was designed 50 years ago. So the group realized they needed substantial reinvestment in both the building stock and the landscape. They also have a beautiful pool, beautiful facilities there that weren't being used well enough. And we began to realize as we mapped the communities that all those little blue dots, all those dots are actually different communities, recreational facilities. And we also realized very, very quickly when we looked at the aerial photograph, which we'll see shortly, that almost all of these were adjacent to these forested, what we call riparian greenways, the forested areas around the creeks and swales that already exist. So we did a little bit of research and we realized that in 2009, Dauphin County actually had a Parks, Recreation and Open Space study that called out the Paxton Creek Greenway, which you can see up here in the corner, as the #2 Greenway priority in the entire county. So this was established in 2009 as a priority. We thought that was prescient. We did a little bit more research and we realized that there was a pile of policy interest in greenways going from 1998, the Greenway Network, which was Governor Ridge's priority, and Governor Ridge put in place a whole group at the state interested in promoting greenways. The 2009 Paxton Creek Greenway was identified by the county. 2015, the EPA consent decree to improve Paxton Creek was put in place, and there's a typo. And in 2020, a Wildwood Lake remediation was begun. So one of the most important components of the Paxton Creek Greenway upstream from Wildwood Lake is if we don't actually take responsibility for the flows of stormwater, which as we know are going to be increasing, we're going to fill Wildwood Lake back in again after we've put all this money into fixing it. So what we're trying to do with this first phase is develop a concept plan which would really be an overview of what the entire greenway system could look like. We've spoken extensively with Susquehanna River Basin Commission, DCNR, DCED, and one of the outcomes of that was the importance of including Asylum Run and some of the other tributaries of the creek into that, which is why we have the, you can see the former state hospital complex in this map on the right-hand side of the slide. But what this also shows you is the extent of this system and how it would actually join with the very successful capillary greenbelt to create a phenomenal recreational opportunity as well as a conservation opportunity. We believe that this can be actually the defining project for Susquehanna Township and could transform how people perceive the entire township as this park and recreational paradise, if you will. This is what I was showing you earlier. I hope you can see that image of the aerial satellite view. And you can already see that these greenways and the riparian corridors already exist. And I think this is the most important thing. One of the things we did at our public workshop is we actually walked sections of these riparian greenways and people could visualize how the parks are almost all there. It just needs to be organized. I will make this faster. There are within this core area that we're looking at from Progress 322 Linglestown to 81, there are about 24 different communities. And one of the things that Regenerate Group is going to start doing is communicating to the different HOAs to bring them all together, at least initially in the area right around Paxton Crossing. Last year when we introduced this to Commissioner Lynch, and Madison, they pointed out that the things that we had realized were already enshrined in your new comprehensive plan, which had not yet been released, but we were very excited to see the correlation between what we were finding in planning and what was already in the stated goals of the Sustainable Susquehanna, particularly the transportation safety and mobility. The idea that the greenway could actually be a parallel transportation system to the roads for bikes and pedestrian could really link the entire township and particularly link housing down to all the employment on Elmerton Avenue, which was actually what this slide was getting ahead of myself. Good, we can go faster. This mapping shows how the trail system could work through here. The trail system connects by using these swales would connect virtually every community in the township to every other community in the township. We are, as Josh already mentioned, we're interested in a larger scale action here. We do need matching funds. We have support letters last year from Keystone Community Planning Grants from DEP. We have support from DCNR, from Lori Ike there, and from Carl at Dauphin County Parks. What everybody needs to see is an initial matching fund, and that will trigger then grants from all of those organizations, as well as, of course, the local share grant. This is very exciting because it brings together the watershed, mobility systems that can go throughout the area, and of course this large park infrastructure that could really put the area on the map. Just recapping things, and thank you for your attention. We look forward to being able to put this in with the township support in a month and a half. Thank you very much.
I see you say the township support is required. What do you mean?
Obviously, the support from the co-sponsorship is required. And I think we're also here to ask if there could be some matching funds put forward, since this is such a global project, and that it touches every part of the township. And we've got one HOA that's been spearheading this from this point forward, or
So you're looking
up
for
to this
township
point.
dollars to go after county dollars?
Yes, because you would directly benefit from the match. The planning's done for you. So
I was not aware that that was part of the package request. You know,
We're-
all of our
yeah.
applicants that come to us are coming for our support
Mhm.
Because you need municipal endorsement. I'm not aware of anybody that's come to us and asked them for dollars in addition to that support.
Okay, well, in this case, we were told specifically, I mean, we're looking for matching funds from any source we can get. So we're
What's you
asking
looking for?
probably about $25,000 to create a match.
Is that in here?
I didn't, I'm not sure I saw that.
I don't recall.
No,
seeing
no,
that.
no, it's not. I don't think it's in the request.
Our budget's usually put together November
Okay,
or the following. And, it's July.
all right. No, well, then we can get in line for the next round. If there was any discretionary dollars available, we would be asking for those. Certainly, the request for matching dollars is not connected to the request for co-sponsorship.
Okay, just
So,
narrow it down.
yeah.
You'd like some money, but you'll take our letter of support.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think that we're in a position to consider that, but we're mid-budget year. We're mid of the year.
We can get in line for next year.
Yeah.
That's fine. And we can put that in officially. I think Paxton Crossing can put that in officially rather than their consultant. So,
Okay.
but thank you very much for the
All right,
clarification.
Thank you.
How do you?
Good evening. My name is Carl Longenbach. I'm a resident at 2635 Gateway Drive in Paxton Crossing. I've lived here since 1983. And for that length of time, it has given me the perspective of what has occurred not only in our neighborhood, but in Susquehanna Township. And I would just like to echo and emphasize from a residential, as a resident's perspective, what Josh and Brett had to present. This is not necessarily about just our development. We see a larger future ahead and the opportunity to connect communities with superb recreation walking trails to all individuals within the township. Secondly, and probably most importantly today, because there is a lot of focus on the environment. And we wanted to at least call attention to our interest as a starting point to bring a greater good to this township and also Lower Paxton, because one of the contributing streams, Black Run, flows into the Paxton Creek watershed. So for that reason, just thinking about the things that we require today and a look to the future to make improvements to the township for all the residents involved. The trails that Brett was talking about, and I'll wrap it up, we're in a prime spot to connect with the trails along the farm show, behind the hospital, and also Wildwood. So thank you for your consideration, and on behalf of all the residents of Paxton Crossing, we ask for your support. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Questions?
Questions, members of the board?
Just a point of clarification. Who is the applicant for this grant?
The Paxton Crossing
The
HOA.
HOA,
Yes.
Thank
you. Okay. Yes.
Anybody else? No good? All right, thank you all.
Thank you for your attention.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Brett. All right, Susquehanna Township High School baseball.
Hey, good evening, ladies, gentlemen. My name is Kenneth Connor. I do live at 305 Oak Street. I'm here, I was here 2 years ago, just as nervous then as I'm now. No, here to request expansion on the safety project that we were able to have last time I came, and I requested a $30,000 from the gaming grant. They awarded us $14,000, stretched that out as much as possible. We were able to, I'm not sure if anybody has gone by the field that is at 801 Wood Street, behind the middle school. We were able to put up safety netting 40 feet high. And with only because of COVID, we weren't able to play 2 years ago or last year. So this year was the first year. And even with 1 year, we noticed a great improvement on balls not traveling out as far. Even the summer programs, I touched with the Legion coach and senior teamer, and they also noticed a big improvement on the safety factor of balls not going out. So I'm here to request a little bit more, going there to get to expand it another 40 feet down the line for expansion so that the safety can go a little bit more with, we have adjoining fields with soccer above, so that would help control balls possibly going up there and also going down the road, down the right field line, expanding down. So it'd be an extra 40. Right now they go 40 feet down. They're 40 feet high, 40 feet down the first base and third base line. We're trying to expand it down another extra 40 feet to make it 80 feet. Again, 40 feet high. So we have pretty much, we know what the cost of the materials, and have the same company that did the grouping, or that did the work, AP Williams, which is a Susquehanna Township company. They did the work, so they would gladly do the work again. And that's about it. Any questions?
So Ken, at this point, just for clarification, I know you were working with AP Williams to try to refine pricing and so forth. So you're thinking the gap that you have now is about 7,000? Is that okay?
Yes, the materials exactly are going to be $3,242.98. There is a water line that has to go, that needs to be finished. That's approximately $500 to finish. And the labor part is going to be somewhere around 3,000. So that would be, and that's based off of the labor from the last time. I'm still waiting for him. He is on vacation to get back in to give me an exact number, but I'm basing that off of the work that was done to add in the 2 extra poles, each pole, going 7 feet into the ground, 40 feet up, and adding the net. But yeah, it definitely increased the safety aspect. That was the biggest part of it, is making sure that with baseballs flying around, one time would be one time too many for someone to be injured. So if we can help protect that as best as possible. So that is why we're doing that. And that's why the extension of the 40 feet down each line to make it 80 feet would just greatly increase the safety of spectators, of cars, of houses in the neighborhood, or on the left side on Wood Street, and also of the adjoining sports that are happening up on the field above.
Okay, so what's the total request, Ken?
Right, it's going to be right around 7,000. Right now, I'm hoping as soon as I get back the exact number from AP Williams, I'm looking at right now $6,742.98. That's 3,000 for the labor, 500 to finish the water line. That's more to help in the summer with summer baseball, to help with the field, and then the materials for the 2 poles and the 2 nettings that have to go up is $3,242.98.
Gotcha.
And we already have all of the hardware for it, so we wouldn't have to buy any extra hardware. So that would just be the pole and the netting.
Okay. And is this on behalf of the school district, or?
This is adjoining because this is a beneficial of the school and for recreational baseball. So this, like I was saying, the Legion baseball team and the senior teamer baseball team use the field in the summers. And they also, like I said, I spoke to both of those coaches, and they greatly, and I saw a couple games, don't get me wrong, and it just greatly, foul balls are still going to go above, but it greatly decreased the distance that they're going to go. So balls going back and to the side can still get to the road, but it decreased, I would say, from the old fencing to this one, easily over 50% of the balls are now being kept up. So that is the main purpose of this, is to keep the safety around the baseball field as safe as possible.
I have any questions?
Yeah, I have the same question. Who's the applicant? Is it the baseball association, or is it the school district?
It's a school district, like we did last time, the Susquehanna Township baseball. Yep.
I do have a question. So is the ask for the entire amount of the project?
Yes, because unfortunately, and there is a gentleman back there that knows how much, unfortunately, they do not provide us with a lot of money through the school district. So this is to just, they prioritize, and we are unfortunately not a high priority. But this is to just expand, like I said, the safety, but they do not.
And it does sound like a good project because it also protects the neighborhood too, the homes and the cars in that area. So the last grant you had, you obtained successfully. Did you obtain the entire amount from the county for that as well?
From what I requested or from what? Requested?
Did you supply matching funds?
No.
Okay, so my question is not for you. I guess it's for the county or the solicitor. So why do the last applicant said that they were turned down last time because they didn't have matching funds? And they're asking the township now for matching funds so that they can comply with the county's request for the grant, but other organizations don't have to provide matching funds, apparently.
I believe that.
And this is not directed at you, sir. And it's,
Sure.
Nothing against your project, but I'm just comparing the two applicants here, what I'm hearing.
Commissioner Barcheck and Dave may have more information. I believe that the last applicant is applying for certain grant funds that are not gaming grant funds. They're over and above that, and they require matching dollars.
Okay.
Gaming grant funds are different. And so I understand this applicant is asking for gaming grant funds, which don't require a matching amount. I think that if I understood Mr. Peters correctly, he was asking for our approval for gaming money, but also county dollars that would attract other grant funds from other streams
Right.
that do require a match. That's all.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing within the guidelines that require any match. So to the extent that Mr. Peters was communicating that the county was requiring a match for that project, that again, there's nothing that programmatically that requires the match.
But that's what they told him.
But perhaps
what he said.
that's what he's communicating is what was communicated to him.
All right. Thank you. And I do support your concept of just comparing the two.
Ken, I have a quick question. Just having been a while since I've been there, were you guys, I know you improved down the lines, were you, we have one of the largest backstops in the whole league. Were you guys able to improve, like, you know, the ball's going directly over the fence and the backstop area?
Like directly
right behind
back.
the plate?
So the old, and unfortunately I was going to print off and my printer didn't work,
Yeah,
so I
no,
did
it's
take
okay.
pictures of. I can
Or
show
had that already
pictures.
been improved prior?
So the fencing that was there, it's hard to describe it. It was like a half fence that stopped, so balls easily could get over it. It wasn't stopping a lot. The only balls that were getting stopped were going hard back.
Yeah.
But anything that was even hard that was going up was still making it all the way back into housing and stuff. So we removed that old fencing.
Okay.
And we just put up netting, and I do have a picture.
Okay, so
and I
there
could-
was an improvement made directly behind the plate.
Yeah, if you wanted to.
I mean, I played there, most of the balls I hit went backwards rather than, so I know.
That's
you know,
good
how it
cricket.
was. Yeah,
Good in cricket, but not.
not great.
And I do have a picture if anybody wanted to. Okay, I didn't know, but yeah, okay, but yeah, it's yeah, we removed the fencing part of it and put a netting straight up.
Okay.
And it's from the brick wall straight up.
Because I know that was problematic as well, with balls just flying straight back in the yards and in the cars. Okay, thank you.
And the 40 feet down the left side or down the right field line would help balls going to down that way down the road and also going
Yes.
back to the housing to the left.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Ken.
Yep.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Ken.
Yep, appreciate it.
Any others for consideration tonight?
There is nothing else at this point in terms of external applicants requesting co-applicant status, Mr. President.
Okay, so eventually we're going to have to act on any that we get in. When is the our deadline for applicants or co-applicants?
So generally, we try to encourage the request to come in July. There have been some that have spilled into August. So generally, when that happens, county will simply ask us for some letter indicating that the commissioners are still considering. Therefore, they allow the applicant to go through the process, go through the pre-application process, and but ultimately, September 1st is the deadline for the application. So they've permitted this kind of intermediate step where we say the commissioners are still reviewing the applications if the commissioners don't feel comfortable with agreeing to be a co-applicant within the month of July.
So it's timely, this being our last month in July to
Correct.
consider.
Yes, I mean, if the commissioners are comfortable with the applications as they stand, that would prevent that intermediate step. It would allow us to communicate to the county that the township has agreed to be a co-applicant with these respective external entities, and will allow them to proceed with completing an application to be submitted by the September 1st deadline.
Is there a motion on any? To, assuming we do get some more in, August.
I mean, sometimes what happens with the process is, I think you're all aware, is, folks will go in for a pre-application meeting and they won't have a municipal sponsor. And the county will refer them based on kind of the county's discretion as to who they feel may be an appropriate sponsor for the project.
President, I think these are three worthy projects, and I certainly would offer a motion to give the townships co-sponsorship to them.
Second.
Seconded by Mona Johnson.
Yes.
That's Mona Johnson.
Hey, Mona. Wow. Any comments or questions before we take a vote?
Yes, Mr. President, I just wanted to go back to the past Paxton Crossing HOA and the Greenway they were talking about. And I'm sorry, I didn't think to mention this when they were here, but as the gentleman pointed out, not only is that project in line with our comprehensive plan, but they're also touching on some of the things that we've talked about in our Environmental Advisory Committee, newly formed, that Commissioner Fine and I had served on, and those results will be brought to the full board soon. But we were talking about interconnectivity and allowing people to navigate the township without cars. And this would help facilitate that.
So just to clarify, the motion second just for the township's endorsement of submission to the county, right?
All three
And not,
yes,
right, and not for additional dollars.
Right.
Okay.
Sponsorship county.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Napper? All right, so motion passes. And Dave, you'll communicate with the
Absolutely.
applicants?
Yep.
Please?
Yep, will do.
Thank you. Township applications.
So yes, there's three items, potential items listed on the agenda. Just to provide some background, so the guidelines this year actually specify what a recommended maximum amount for a municipal entity would be. That's a non-contiguous municipality, which we're a non-contiguous municipality. So that amount in the guidelines is $150,000. So recognize that that's somewhat limited based on the at least the preliminary cost opinion that we have for the playground renovations at both Edgemont and Stabler. Those came in a little higher than what was initially contemplated or expected.
Dave, is that 150 per project or total?
It's 150 per total. So
150 total?
150 total, yes.
Okay. Thank
So,
you.
and that's generally consistent with what we've been awarded in past, cycles. We've gotten anywhere from 150 to about $200,000 with prior applications. Again, there's three potential purposes for an application or potential projects that could be incorporated into a single application. As I said, the first deals with playground renovation at both Edgemont and Stabler. The equipment at both of those facilities has, I would say, reached the end of its useful life. And there are some just not hugely pressing safety concerns, but some concerns with some of the equipment that's currently out there at both of those facilities. Doug has been just kind of incrementally going through and doing an assessment of all park and recreational facilities, again, evaluating both the condition of facilities as well as the safety components associated with facilities. So these are two that that rose to the top. And Edgemont in particular, I believe, has been a point of discussion and was kind of contemplated even as far back when you were talking about Veterans Park and kind of prioritizing playground improvements. So needed projects from a township perspective. Obviously would be great additions to both of those great community facilities. The second item is related to a lease payment or a debt service payment for a project that we had pursued 2 cycles ago. And this relates to the replacement of portable and mobile radios for both police and fire. And the third is the Uptown Infrastructure Project, which was both a sanitary project and a stormwater project that was funded through the Dauphin County Infrastructure Bank. And that's something that we have also sought funds for in the past to offset debt service. Recognizing again the kind of programmatic recommended limitation of 150 and where we're at with the playgrounds. And those scopes are by no means, refined. There's still going to be some discussion at the RAC. I'm sure, individual commissioners have perhaps desires for each of those facilities. So we'll absolutely engage a number of folks in kind of refining that scope. But recognizing that as it stands now, the total of that is 177,000, which is in excess of 150. The recommendation from a staff perspective for this cycle would be to submit an application consisting of 2 projects. First would be the public safety portable and mobile radio project. 2 cycles ago, we had received $175,000 for that. Our lease payments, our annual lease payments are about $103,000. So we still have on hand about $72,000 of money for the 2022 lease payment for that project. So at this point, there's about a $31,000 gap in terms of what we would need in order to make that lease payment. So we would propose to close that gap. So request about $31,000 of the $150,000 for purposes of the portable and mobile radio project, and then take the remainder of that 150 and put in for the rehabilitation projects at the two playgrounds, which again would likely not fund both of those projects, but would get us to a point where we'd be in a much better situation to be able to advance those projects. And to hold off this year for the Uptown Infrastructure Improvement Project debt service. So that's our recommendation from a staff perspective. Again, if the commissioners have a different perspective or have different projects, obviously, now is the time to raise that. But those are 2 worthwhile projects from our perspective that would be appropriate for the funding program that we're looking at.
President.
Sir.
Move to accept Mr. Cratchit's staff's recommendation.
Second.
A little late, Mona.
I think it's a delay.
Yeah. Anyway, moved in second. Any comments or questions, Mona?
No, I don't have any comments or questions.
All
I
right.
think there were first. I said I didn't have any comments, but then I'm going on to say that I certainly appreciate our new recreation director for including, or actually getting out there and looking at our parks and seeing what's needed to be done. So I want to thank him for that. That's my comment.
All right. Thank you. Good to hear your voice.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to?
Was it 119 or 120?
So it's
for the parks portion?
Yeah, roughly. I mean, whether we round just 120 for the playgrounds and 30 for the lease payment, it would get us close to covering that gap on the lease payment, and then we would have a substantial sum of money to advance these rehab projects at the playground.
Thank you.
All right. No other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you so much, commissioners.
Thank you. Next up, item F, 3401 and 3405 North Front Street, traffic study, scope of work concurrence.
Evening, commissioners.
Evening.
How are you? Gregor Galsky, Susquehanna Township resident. I'm here in my capacity as a vice president with the Pannoni Associates representing the plan on North Front Street this evening. So we're here in front of you to discuss specifically municipal board concurrence with our proposed scope of work for a traffic study. I believe, as the board is aware, the subdivision and land development ordinance has certain requirements contained within it when a traffic study is or is not required with respect to a potential development. In our particular case, we actually are less than the square footage that is required. So there is a secondary component of the subdivision land development ordinance that does allow the board to request a traffic study in cases where they believe that there's a significant impact potentially. So where we're here this evening, we had generated a scope of work. Essentially, we haven't done the study, but we have what we're going to do, presented in a letter to the board. We're asking for the board's concurrence with respect to that letter. With that letter was submitted through staff as well as engineer Grubik to obtain their concurrence as well with respect to this particular thing. It's our intent, of course, moving forward, if indeed we were to get concurrence from the board this evening, to perform that particular study. And then we would be back, as people have mentioned, extension has been granted. There are plan revisions in process, which include the redaction of some of the waivers that we had previously submitted, and present a final plan to the board. So we're not at the point here tonight that we're have that has not been submitted to you yet. Some of those revisions are ongoing as reasonable or as recently as Monday of this week. So we're continuing to work towards a final plan submission for the board that hears the concerns of the residents as well as some of the concerns of the constituent members as well. So I also have in the audience with me Will Gates of Linlow Properties. He is the developer. I think just for clarification, and the board should be aware that there's actually three parties to this transaction. There is an ownership component. Mr. Gates is the developer who's developing the project, and then there, of course, is the people who will ultimately utilize it. So a lot of discussions have been had about the developers doing this, the developers doing that. Just be aware that there are multiple parties engaged in this particular process. So I will be happy. Certainly the letter, I believe, has been distributed to the board with respect to the scope itself. Generally, it's a three-part process. Number one, we'd be looking at the actual generation of traffic that's coming from the facility based on national data as well as accepted engineering practice to determine what that generation of traffic will be because of the facility. Item number two is a trip distribution, figuring out where people are likely to go when they use the facility, how they're going to get there, how they're going to leave, as well as a 5-year crash history. We look back 5 years at both reportable and non-reportable. I thank Chief Martin for providing the non-reportables already, so we have that information, and utilizing data to one point related to we are actually not counting data. We're getting data from locally or readily available sources, and it is pre-COVID. So in order to identify that gap between, certainly there's been traffic reduction during the last 2 years or whatever, it's year and a half. We're looking at using 1999 data. I'm sorry, 2019 data. In addition to that, the county is also supplementing some data at their own discretion, and that isn't true. You'll see a counter out there today on Montrose. So that is where some of that data is coming from. So package that all together. It's our intent to take that readily available data as well as what we've kind of combined and compiled, put that together in a report, and then provide that with the board in our resubmission when we come back to the board here in August at some point in time. So that is a request. Once again, I think what we're looking for this evening is the board's concurrence with that scope of work only, and then we move forward with the study and the plan revisions to come forward at a different time and place in August.
Do you have any comments or?
Well, just for the benefit of residents who are here and obviously interested in this, because we received this recently and they have not seen it, just so they're aware of what we're voting on. Just going to name some of the streets in the study because you mentioned studying intersections and traffic volumes, so they have an idea of the extent that it will be covered. North 2nd Street, Bergner, Front Street, 6th Street, Vaughn Street, Montrose, Front Street between I-81 and Vaughn, Edwin. So those are the areas that we'll be reporting on.
Correct.
With the items you mentioned, traffic counts and accident histories.
And Commissioner, to the extent that the board concurs with the scope, we'll also make sure that it's posted online. We've been periodically putting updates online regarding the project, recognizing the interest. So.
Thank you.
If I could just make a comment, Mr. President, regarding the scope. We have worked, as Greg indicated, we've worked with his office and his staff related to developing the scope. The scope is extensive. It addresses the concerns along multiple corridors, as Commissioner Robarczyk indicated. And it is a scope that I believe is going to address the needs and concerns of the residents, as well as the needs and concerns of the township. And if we were doing the study, we would come up with a almost identical scope. So I would recommend it to the board that the scope be adopted and the work be done. We would, of course, be reviewing the scope and providing comments prior to its presentation to the board.
I do have a question. So when you take information from the traffic studies, are they conducted over 24-hour periods? So in other words, 24 hours a day? Because I'm wondering, we don't know if the medical facility, if that will be in operation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or what the hours will be. So will these numbers past numbers take into consideration events at those times?
Correct. So typically how it works is that traffic studies kind of come with two components. You know, we talk about volumes, meaning straight line traffic on roadways, as well as turning movement counts, which are at individual intersections. So typically those traffic volumes are on an average daily basis, which means that is a 24-hour count. Whereas the turning movements are usually counted specifically during the peak hours, you know, and that might be from 6 to 9 or whatever the specific peak hours are. So, you know, whatever data is available, we're utilizing that as the typical approach, as you know, off-peak hour issues are typically less than the peak hour, and therefore if the peak hour, I'll say, works, you know, the off-peak would work as well.
Do you, I don't have a copy of that letter in front of me. I did look at it online. Do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, I do.
Could you read I think it's first sentence in the second or third paragraph regarding the purpose of the study? Could you read that sentence, please?
The purpose of the study and report will be address traffic and safety concerns by documenting that the additional vehicular traffic volumes generated by the proposed site development will represent a significantly small percentage comparable to the overall traffic volumes currently utilizing the surrounding roadway network. Is that what you're saying?
That sentence struck me as if you've already come to a conclusion that it doesn't meet that volume requirement. It struck me because it seems to me that when you're doing a study, you need to start it with an open mind to say, we want to see what's there. And the way that was written is it seemed like the purpose was to show that it didn't meet the criteria for our board to have any input regarding the.
That is not the case, Commissioner Rockthrock. So based on experience, medical office buildings in general are a relatively low generator of traffic as compared to other uses. So simply based on the use, you know, it's our opinion based on experience that typically that these particular types of facilities have a very low impact.
So you formed an opinion before you do the study?
I think of anything, as soon as we know anything about the project, we form an opinion. There's certainly a case, but I have not drawn any conclusions related specifically to the traffic itself. That's why we're performing this study.
Okay, well, that just really struck me when I read that your purpose was to prove a particular point rather than to simply look at the evidence. I think that kind of statement kind of throws what you're doing into some question, seems to me. I prefer to more neutral.
Well, and to say that medical facilities are low volume generators compared to other uses, yes, perhaps to other business uses, but this is surrounded by residential. So we have, it's a residential neighborhood. When you're talking about a business, they're generally in these facilities. For instance, these dialysis facilities are usually in a business park. So to say they generate low traffic volumes, low is relative to where it's located.
Commissioner, I do not disagree with you 100%. You know, once again, we're taking, you know, comparatively against other nationally ranked facilities. That is how these numbers are generated. So, you know, we're going to provide the numbers. The intent here is to provide a qualitative analysis of these issues. And, I know that the residents are in the audience and there's concerns, and the intent is to be able to provide some type of numbers to back it up and compare it to nationally accepted standards. So, anybody can say intersection is dangerous. Anybody can say driving is dangerous. There's risk in everything. So we're attempting to take what data we have available, synthesize it into a presentation where we can say, hey, these are the comparative numbers or whatever they might be, and move forward.
With that said, Mr. President, I'll make a motion that we accept the scope of work.
Second.
We've been seconded. Any other comments or questions? I agree that sentence could have started off a little bit better. It's like, all right, here's the conclusion we want to get to. Let's go find it. But been around you for a long time. Trust you. I personally, I don't know if these other people, but
I don't trust him at all.
Yeah.
Kidding.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's just strike that from the record.
It's stricken.
We go back a long way.
And the solicitor's neck is going like this. So anyway, it's been moved and seconded. Barring any other comments or questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners. Good to
Thanks,
see all of you.
Mr. Gaskell. Say hi to Peg. Generally, we don't do this in the middle of a meeting because we already had our public session, but if you want to say something quickly.
Yes, I'm getting the impression that the plan that for that site is something in process. And I need some clarification as to what is the timeline. And
You come to.
and when.
Yes, sir. If you, just for the benefit of those, because they're not able to hear, if you wouldn't mind just coming to the microphone. Obviously, we can hear you, but
Okay, sorry. At what point will the citizens see the complete study? The gentleman that just spoke, I understand from what he said, he's part of the planning for the site, and he's doing the study of the traffic. And he's going to incorporate that into the final plan. When will the final plan be final? And at what point do the citizens who live in the area will be able to speak to what's being presented? And will we have advance notice of that, or will we have to show up at a meeting like this where you will be making a decision at that night, and that would be our only input? I would hope that we would have the plan in advance so that we could study it and then come with some prepared remarks. Thank you.
And if I may, Mr. President.
Sure.
Manager Kretzer and staff have been posting the plans to the township website. We don't have the current plan, obviously, that they're working on, but when we had a previous plan, it was posted to the township website and residents did have access to it prior to the meeting. So presumably we are going to take action on this at the end of August. So they will have submitted, the applicant will have submitted the plan prior to that meeting date. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it will be posted then to the township website for residents to review it prior to the meeting.
Yes, as soon as we, Commissioner, as soon as we get the resubmittal, we'd be happy to post all of the materials that we receive, yes.
Yeah, if I could just speak for a minute. One of the things that we took into consideration was the comments from the public or from the neighborhood about the design of the building. And we took that to heart. We made a lot of changes to the building. And the architect was very busy over the last month and a half making changes. We think that we've come up with, I think, a very good building design. I'm mostly speaking about the exterior, the roof, the facade that will fit into the neighborhood. And I think much thanks to Jeb. I mean, I think he and I worked together on it, and the architect. I'm not a very good designer, but if I may, I brought along a bunch of copies. If I could maybe just pass them out to maybe to you and maybe some in the audience. I brought along 20 copies. Some have color and some don't, but
Greg, do you have any idea when you'll be making a resubmittal to the township just on that issue?
Yes, Mr. President. So once again, we're in the process of preparing this. We just got approval tonight, so we need to prepare the study and get it back. I would like to think we would potentially be at the second or the August 12th meeting. I do have some reservations because we are still collecting some data, but I would think that obviously I think we will be in for the second meeting in August, no matter what.
Okay, thank you.
Greg, if I may, I have one other question. I don't know if you can answer this, but it's something that residents have been asking me, and then as a person on the project, you may know the answer. They noticed a discrepancy in the lot size between the deed and the last plans that were submitted.
Yeah, so
are you able to speak to that?
I am actually. So we received that comment from the township. That particular survey was done when there was snow on the ground. So we went back out, we located 2 additional pins to kind of relocate the right of way of Front Street, which actually pushed it further into the lot. So part of the plan revision that you're going to see when it comes back in is, we obviously had to move the parking further into the lot as well. There will be sidewalks shown along both Bergner and Front Street, as well as all 4 sides of the property. There will be street trees shown. And so once again, there'll also be a second means of egress and access to eliminate some of those waivers. So we have indeed listened. We are attempting to eliminate as many waivers as possible for the plan, and I believe that there will be a different reaction, I believe, to the current plan.
Just for members of the communities, as Commissioner Barczyk, I think rightly pointed out, and you heard Engineer Rogalski indicate, they will try and bring the plan in by the 12th, August 12th meeting, but if they're unable to do that, they will bring it in by the second meeting, just before the 27th, which is when it's being considered. Staff will post those when they're received on the website and I'm sure be available for inspection. And in addition, with regard to the traffic study, that will be reviewed, as will the plan, by HRG. And if there's any issues, disputes, concerns, additional matters, both staff and HRG will review that. So that's the process. And I just wanted to amplify Commissioner Barczyk's comment so that there's some clarity about how this is going to proceed. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And I believe that the submission deadline was a week prior to the meeting in the past. We would be obviously adhering to that. But we are working on getting some more things together before we make that submission.
And I'm sure that you understand the community would like that to be a week and a couple days.
Sure, I do understand that.
Thank you.
We will do our best.
That's the question, the legal question. At what point when they're making these changes?
Debbie, would you mind coming up just because again?
They significantly mismeasured the size of the lot. That means they're changing a lot to this. At what point do they have to go back to planning rather than, and we know that they, from their comments in planning meetings, that they were anxious to get out of planning and not listen to what they had to say. So at what point can you keep changing a plan and not go back into planning?
We just have, ma'am, we have to see their plan before I can really comment on that. I'm sorry about that. And then again, as I indicated earlier, because the board has to consider this with an open mind.
Absolutely.
They're enjoined from commenting because I told them not to.
That's why I went to ask.
So,
well, and to that point, for the record, I just want to state it clearly. I do trust Mr. Rogalski. The prior comment was made in jest, so there is no, I've known him personally and professionally for more than 20 years. So just so there is no doubt about that.
Plus, the township has its own engineer who can review this
Yes.
and report and make
That is
recommendations to us. So it's not like we're relying on one engineer.
Right.
No, but we got this, and we got this far and not noticing 20 feet of difference on Montrose Street. And appreciate that you all trust them. This is in my neighborhood. It's 80 steps away from my house. And this is nice. I'm glad they're changing the look of it. It's not our problem. Most of us, and we love Jeb Stewart, but him making the building look nice doesn't solve most of our other problems. So thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments before we vote on concurrence?
we've done it.
We did.
I think
we did.
I think we did.
We did.
Okay.
Well, Mr. President, if I may, just a
Yes.
brief personal anecdote. Just 2 nights ago, I saw a father with 2 young children walking across Front Street, across that lot. So, sidewalks would be wonderful.
Okay, since we already voted on that. Susquehanna Union Green Financial Security Release number 8, the amount of $80,269.
I can take that, Mr. President. As you know, the Susquehanna Union Green project is well underway. They have been very diligent in getting the work done on time. And the current request for reduction financial security adjustment number 8 is in the amount of $80,269. I would recommend its approval, and Kat Wilsbach from the Bartown Group is here tonight if you have any questions of her.
You know how to clear a room, Bob. You know how to clear a room, buddy.
Yeah, it's coming down to the wire here. If Mike and I leave, you know,
That's right. Or the coolers.
No, I did not. All right, so Mr. Rubik explained. Do you have anything to add to that, Kat?
Oh, yeah. I mean, first of all, we just want to appreciate it. This is you're the first in-person meeting for a while. So we appreciate you guys working with us through the entire situation that is and continues to be COVID. We've obviously had a significant amount of reductions. This is our 8th reduction on the financial security. A lot of that is, things that aren't super visible to the naked eye out there. There's been a lot of dirt moved. Included in this financial security adjustment is all of our ENS controls, which are for the entire 58-acre parcel. There's also, a lot of storm pipe, a lot of underground storm systems installed, and everything in an amazing, kudos to York Excavating for working through the pandemic. But so we're at a point where now you guys can see the things we're asking for reductions for. So our current reduction, our last 2 reductions have been really involving, the street based, the stoning and grading of the streets that you see going in, the paving of the streets. And now if you go out to the site, then you can also see that actually the form work is in for the sidewalks. So they're going to be pointing the sidewalk, all the curbing is in. So all these things are happening. And we do foresee the street trees and topsoil coming into the fall planting season. So we just appreciate you guys working with us. If you have any questions, we love having people out to the site. I especially love it, in the summer and fall. But we appreciate President Lynch was at our groundbreaking for our single family homes. I think as it relates to our interest in the single family homes, is currently Landmark's most popular development on any shore in any county. They've had a significant amount of pre-sale interest, and so I think that really complements just the collaborative approach our designs had. So if you ever have any questions, please reach out. If you have any questions now, I'm happy to answer them.
Kat, I do, and I don't know if it's a question for you or for Bob. Is the signalization going to be one of the last things that happen?
That will be the last thing. We're still awaiting the highway occupancy permit and the signal permit, Commissioner. As soon as that's done, and as you know, the signal that is there now will have to be relocated.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, that will be one of the
And I
last
was
things.
thinking of farther on Progress. What's the street across?
Garrison.
Garrison. Yes, that's more what I was thinking.
Commissioner Clinton, we would like for it to go any day now. But yeah, we are in PennDOT permitting, waiting on that permit. And actually that letter of credit is through Dauphin County Infrastructure Bank, and that funding is happening through that entity with HRG and Mr. Rubik's firm, overseeing it. So this FSA actually isn't directly related to that.
And I have a question too.
Yeah.
I've been asking Bob about this for a while, but the sidewalks, I'm trying to visualize them. I know you're putting them in across Linglestown Road now. So is there a slope to them?
There is. So because of traffic safety, there's significant, as you guys all are aware, there's significant amount of traffic that occurs on Linglestown Road. So the sidewalks for the majority of the Linglestown frontage are closer to the street wall. You can see the columns for the street wall going into the fencing. So they are adjacent to that. So there is some separation between traffic level and what would be like a pedestrian level up there. And there will be plantings and other items that would prevent, that would enhance safety in that regard. It does,
because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the property to the east at Sturbridge, that sidewalk is adjacent to the roadway. So as you get closer, and actually as the grade kind of reduces going to the east, it does slope back down and come closer to the road.
So I guess my question is then when you're approaching that sidewalk, so do you have to go up steps or is it just a slope?
What you will see when they finish the corner design and the current, we are here in, you guys will see me on Monday at the Planning Commission for phase 3 as well. That plan shows very similar. It's just been updated a little bit with grading and PennDOT improvements, but there is actually an accessible switchback that'll go up to the actual, to where the buildings are located at the corner of Progress and Lingelstown. There's main steps and then a pedestrian switchback.
I guess so if you're crossing from the senior housing community across the street, they come over and they go switch back to go up the grade.
Correct. Yeah, just because it has to be pedestrian, it has to be ADA accessible, so they can't just go straight up.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
because that was a concern from the beginning, like from the very beginning, like getting access for those residents.
Yeah,
safely.
Correct, and that's why we did.
With their walkers going up that grade.
Yes,
That's what I'm picturing.
Yeah, that is unfortunately just due to the elevation change. What the kind of what the topography requires. Otherwise, it would be.
We could eliminate that with a walking bridge over.
You could. Yeah, you'd have to come up even further from the tunnel.
I mean, we went to listening sessions and we heard from those folks. We went to their community and heard them say, we really want to, be able to come over there and patronize the businesses, but we have concerns about getting across the street and accessing it. So.
And certainly HRG has done a great job of making sure it's an enhanced intersection. So it's not just a crosswalk, it has, PennDOT enhancements to make it safer. And to that point, I mean, we're certainly not asking them to go down to the entrance, at Garrison, what would now be Garrison and Lingelstown. We are providing right there at that corner a way to get up into the site, with giving accessibility. I will say that our landscape architects focus on universal accessibility and even 5% maximum grades in parking lots is seen throughout the site. It just ends up, it all has to tie together. And unfortunately that grade, I think now that it's under construction, it's more noticeable than ever. I mean, we have not, trust me, we did not add any fill to that corner. we brought it down, to the tune of a significant amount of rock removal to make that happen. And so it just is, unfortunately kind of what occurs there. And I think with it being clear and no grass, it's even more noticeable than usual.
All right. Well, thanks for answering my questions. I appreciate it.
Of course.
And Kat, I would suggest, as you and I spoke about recently, as your landscape architect is developing the plan for the entrance feature at Progress in Lingelstown, perhaps if you could have them prepare a concept plan for distribution to the board so they can see what the finished product is going to look like.
Certainly. Our current plan with the Planning Commission for phase 3 shows all the things that have kind of, I think to look at it with the naked eye, it's hard to see all the changes unless you do an exact overlay, but it shows a current layout of where those buildings, how they interact there with a pedestrian street to that corner. And they are still working on a landscaping plan, incorporating features and, there's a lot of focus on like just making sure you have a placemaking, that you feel like you're in Susquehanna Township and this is a place you would take a picture with your family and post on your social media of choice or send out a Christmas card. So there's a lot of focus on that. When we said to our landscape architect, we want to do a final design of this, he kindly reminded us is the most important part of the project there at the intersection. So we will share the concepts that we have.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion for the financial security lease in the amount of $80,269 for the Susquehanna Union Green project.
Thank you, Commissioner. Seconded by Commissioner Johnson. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Aye.
carried.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good evening. I'll see you on Monday.
Thanks,
Or
Kat.
not you,
Thanks,
Monday,
Kat.
but the township. I'll be back.
Yeah. All right, item H, grease trap variance, wing basket, Dave.
Yes, Commissioners. This is you've seen this before. It's a form kind of declaration of understanding and acceptance of conditions that was prepared by the authority solicitor. As is noted on the agenda, it relates to the Wing Basket, which is a restaurant at 3911 Union Deposit Road. The authority has reviewed the proposed grease trap design, has deemed it to be acceptable and adequate, and therefore is recommending approval of the grease trap variance, subject to execution of the declaration of understanding and acceptance of the conditions by the property owner, which, as you see in your packet, they've already accepted the terms and conditions of that declaration. So again, the authority is recommending its approval. It's a township ordinance, and that's why it's coming before you.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments?
I just have one, and I hate to belabor this, but these come before us quite often. So is our 1,000?
Is our standard?
Is our standard a little out of date, given like current market conditions, or are we okay?
Yeah, Bob, I don't know if you have any comment on that. I mean, 1,000 gallons is quite.
1,000 gallons is
Quite large, right?
significant.
Okay.
But the problem with the way the ordinance is written, it's 1,000 gallons, and that's it.
Yeah.
And when it was written years ago, it was written for the maximum as opposed to a smaller operation like this.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that we keep it as is and grant the variances as they occur, as opposed to waiving things.
Or just when we make it our ordinances, maybe amend it to 750 or whatever.
It would all depend. It would all depend on the size of the facility and the type of the facility.
Yeah, the use and the size.
The use is critical in this case.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I see what you just basically.
Just out of an abundance of caution, I think we should leave it
consider
the way
and consider each situation as it comes.
Correct.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Township building renovation project, Dave. Or Gary.
Commissioner Rothrock or Commissioner Pine, I don't know if you want to maybe talk about the work of the committee and kind of the iterations that have been going back and forth, and or not. I just want to give you an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, the renovations that, we can discuss, and Gary and I, and I'm sorry, Commissioner Rothrock and I, and staff have been discussing, are really targeted towards security, efficiency, and accessibility. And the drawing here that you might notice has a lot of activity probably in the area of the bathrooms, quite frankly. And one thing it does is convert two bathrooms that are kind of in back of us here, that are seldom used in the commissioner's area or the manager's area, to one accessible bathroom. And I think that's a real important point to make. And there's a lot of other good details about these plans, but they're done in the interest of security, especially the entranceway. And when people coming in and funneling the traffic, making arrangements so that people can go into a conference room to meet with township officials without going into the interior heart of the township building, which I think is another good thing. And as I say, efficiency, security, and accessibility. And I think we've accomplished a lot of that here. And I'm sure that either our manager or Commissioner Rockroth can add to my comments.
Yeah, one of the features too is to, since we have two essentially identical buildings side by side, to direct folks that are coming to see the township or the police department come to this building by changing the facade, raising that, lighting it better, and doing some fairly simple things, fairly low cost things, without really getting into changing the exterior a whole lot, to distinguish this entrance from the police building entrance, so that everyone would come here, go through a secure entrance, and be directed to where they go. And so I think the architect really has done a really nice job. Administrative area, the office area, also is designed with a lot of flexibility so that, we can have files in the middle, or if we need additional desks, we can do that. So we're looking to the future, trying to have something here that's a little bit more flexible and suitable to the needs of our staff.
And, really workflow and the staff had a lot of input into this and their needs and their better functioning is really reflected in this plan. So that's what I like about it too.
I mean, just to comment on that, the design is intended, the open kind of design on the other side is intended to promote, additional kind of collaboration. The too long that the township has been very siloed in terms of its functions. So this design in terms of its open layout not only provides the flexibility that Commissioner Pine and Commissioner Rothrock are mentioning, but also is designed in a way where there's informal kind of learning opportunities and learning environment for staff, so that we're starting to develop redundancy across functional areas. So the best way to learn sometimes is to just hear casually, and this layout is kind of geared towards that and trying to accomplish that. And looking at, how do we staff in the future, and is there an opportunity for, shared kind of staff across, various functional areas if we're able to, develop kind of capacity and depth in those various areas. So Commissioner Rothrock and Commissioner Pine have done a great job in working with Tono, and have done it in a way that, while not insignificant from a cost perspective, is about as cost effective as I think you can possibly do something to the building. Just to provide some additional detail before you kind of consider, again, this is before you today. The bid specs have been provided to Eckert Siemens. Eckert has provided some comments on making some modifications, again, that are in our interest in kind of reducing risk as we're dealing with contractors. So that'll be incorporated into the finalized bid set. They're looking at a potential release tomorrow, and then bids being due at the end of August. Let's see here. Looking at an award no later than September, and then a beginning start in October. The cost of the project is still consistent with what the estimated cost was when we previously spoke about this, so anywhere from $1.1 to $1.2 million. And we had provided a kind of a source of funding sheet for you. If you recall, we had issued debt in 2021 that was largely for HVAC work, but there's about $513,000 of debt proceeds from that issue that would be available for this project. We have a small grant through Comcast as part of the franchise renewal for some of the technology improvements that are going to be implemented as part of the project. And then the balance we would propose to use either ARPA funds, which we're still in the midst of having conversations with ZA about the potential of utilizing a portion of those, or general fund balance. There will definitely be a portion of ARPA funds that are able to be applied to this project. If we can't, make a nexus from a kind of a COVID prevention standpoint, which we're going to attempt to do, there is that lost revenue kind of component. So ZA is in the process of calculating what our lost revenue is, and that is essentially not subject to any restriction for use. So again, we have the financial capacity to do the project. The committee has worked hard on this, and we're recommending a release of the bid so that we can get final numbers for your consideration and review.
Right, so you're looking for authorization
to release the bid at this point. And again, obviously, those numbers will come back to you as any bid does, and you'll be able to evaluate it and make modifications as you see fit.
So move.
Second.
Any comments, questions?
Yeah, I have just one concern. we're experiencing a sort of high cost period of time here coming out of the COVID. And we had another project that we more or less discussed delaying going to bid on simply because costs are so high now that we're afraid we're going to get, bids that are exorbitant, whereas if we waited a little while, we might do better. But I was wondering if our engineer could give us some feel for, where that situation lies.
You're absolutely correct, Commissioner. There are some crazy things going on in the construction market right now, both from a pricing standpoint, not so much from a pricing standpoint today, but from a pricing standpoint when certain materials are delivered. The delivery chain and the supply chain is broken. And I'm talking about everything from 2x4s, lumber, structural steel, plumbing supplies, HVAC equipment. It's on backward. We talk with suppliers and contractors all the time, and that's the biggest cry that they have. The biggest concern that I would have is determining once the bids come in, how the contractors view the bidding and how much cushion, if you will, they're putting in to take care of any price increases. I don't foresee that any price decreases occurring within the next 6 to 9 months.
So we're sort of we're in the environment we're in. And
we're in the environment we're in, and I think any further delays may end up creating additional costs to the township. So my recommendation would be to go ahead and put it out. Let's see what the prices, see what the numbers come in, and make a decision based on that. Hopefully we can get some good numbers.
If they're all sky high, can we reject all bids?
You can
Absolutely.
The township can reject any and all bids based on a lot of different variables, a lot of different factors.
I will say that, as Dave pointed out, our construction lawyers really scrutinized the bid specs and the bid package, and I think build in some favorable language for the township. So
I will say that, to my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, we may not face the challenges because we're not looking at new construction. So we're looking at remodel and modification. So a lot of the guts and the bones are still here. They'll have to remove some walls and do some things, but we may be in a better position because they're not replacing a whole lot of what's here already. I mean, does that make sense?
I mean, we will be looking at drywall, for instance, in the market, and that has been a little crazy, right? So it's going to be interesting to see what they come back with.
Hey, this is Commissioner Napper, and I know we did look at, the HVAC. We're looking at the IT portion of this. And then have we ever thought about a hybrid mode? You know what I mean? With a lot of employees, a lot of companies now have all this office space and no one's working in their offices now. Those are some of the things that, we can address once the bids are completed. That's all.
Mr. President, I have one question. So considering that we're looking at security, and I appreciate that, I may have asked this question once before, but the conference room, that's for public meeting with the public, does that only have one means of ingress, egress?
Yes, I believe that's true.
I really think in any room where you're with the public, as we have now, you have two means of ingress and egress. Even if it's like a key card where you can go into the back office to get out.
I think there was a deliberate attempt to prevent access to the inner office, except in the very controlled points. And I think that was the reason that doesn't happen there. But there may be a glass wall here.
Yeah, there's glass to be able to look into the room.
I think
But you can't get out.
But
So
yeah.
I'm saying somebody's standing there in front of the door doing whatever, and you want to get out of that room, you can't. Because they're in front of the door.
Same problem with the offices.
But the public isn't supposed to be in the offices. That's what I'm saying. This is a public meeting space. I mean, if you're all okay with it, it's
Yeah,
fine,
we
but
can-
I'm just thinking of somebody with a weapon, I'll just say it. And I'm always thinking, you know, you look around here, you have several ways out, and it's the same way with every room where we're gonna meet with the public, even if you go downstairs, with the room where the kitchen is, you can go up the stairs or you can go out the other way. I think anytime you're in the room where public has access, you should have two ways out. And even if it is just with a key card to get into the back offices, or whatever the arrangement is.
Looks like there is two entrance exits.
Anyway.
Yeah, we
there's a
can-
Motion on the floor, but do you want to work with?
Yeah, we can absolutely
committee
work. Yep.
and The, you know,
Okay.
bidders and.
All right, I raised it
I
a
agree
couple
with you.
meetings ago too, so I'm just raising it again. I mean, last time we looked at this, I brought it up, and if, you know, that's not the will, that's okay, but I think it's important from a safety standpoint, if we're doing this for safety.
Agreed.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right,
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. All recreational program. And
So there, yeah, so there was and Doug apologizes that he's not able to be here today, but he did have an opportunity, I think, to speak to a number of commissioners on this issue. There's a memo in your packet, and he spoke a little bit about fall programming, and you had given the green light to start some of the planning associated with fall programming. So he has a slate of programs, a pretty diverse slate of programs trying to address a variety of interest and kind of target a number of age groups. The majority of the particularly good portion of the programs are obviously outdoor programs as opposed to indoor programs, recognizing some of the uncertainty associated with what's happening from a COVID perspective. But wanted to kind of get this slate of programs before the commissioners, see if there's any questions, any objections to any of them. Doug has been speaking with the communications committee about doing a communications piece using a local firm, GraphTech, to do some design work for us, and then doing a small mailer to residents to make them aware of these programs and trying to promote registration. General intent is that these programs would be self-sufficient, so registrations would cover the cost of the programming. And again, try to be as diverse as possible in terms of interest and segments of the population to try to reintroduce programming to Susquehanna Township and the residents of Susquehanna Township. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to address those. But this is what he's put together at this point.
any questions?
Do we need to?
Yeah, I mean, if,
vote on this?
now he'll bring back individual contracts for each of these, so that to the extent that there's a contractor, I guess the vote would be just kind of general concurrence with the schedule, and then allowing him to proceed with advertising just to assess what the demand is for these.
I'd make that motion.
And what was-
Second.
To go with this proposed,
Slate of programs and
programs on this approximate schedule.
And it's been seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Johnson. Any comments or questions?
This Commissioner Johnson, my only comment is, I spoke with Doug briefly, and I just thanked him, for all the hard work that he's putting into the winter program. I mean, I really appreciate what he's doing and how he's turning around our programs here. And that's really my only comment.
Yeah, I was saying to somebody last week, it's quite obvious that we have our recreation program back. Very robust. It's good.
Yeah, we have some great, partnerships on this list. Just to point out, we've been speaking with Floyd Stokes and the American Literacy Corporation and trying to promote just a variety of programs, and that again will appeal to folks beyond just kind of the traditional sports programming that perhaps we've done in the past.
All right, did we vote on that?
No.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Traffic study request, North Fourth Street and Montrose. Chief?
Yes.
There was a traffic study request for potential stop signs, four-way stop signs at North Fourth and Montrose Street. Study was completed. And the recommendations are as follows. Paint 25 mph on Montrose Street in both directions, Logan and Fulton for traffic calming. Replace the height of the sign in the northwest corner of this intersection because it doesn't meet PennDOT standards. It's too small. It needs to be 7 feet. No parking signs should be added on Montrose Street east and west of the intersection to ensure safe sight distance. And my recommendation is lastly, in the interest of public safety, and I know Montrose Street came up a lot tonight. It does seem to be the most traveled east-west street in Montrose Park from 81 South, from Front Street over to 6th. So in the interest of public safety, I recommend a four-way stop be placed.
So moved. Second. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
So just a note on those last two, you'll have to enact an ordinance. So if you're okay with having the solicitor prepare the notice of intent to adopt in the ordinance, you can if you
Why
want.
not, for the record?
Yeah, we should.
I move and intend to adopt an ordinance to support the.
Second by Napper.
Second by Napper. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks. The handicap parking request was studied for 3432 North 6th Street, and we did approve that. We recommend its approval.
And there is a resolution, again, that your code requires the passage of a resolution. So there is a copy of resolution 21-R-08 adopting or authorizing the handicap parking space that's supported by the study.
Move to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up.
So the next item, this is the one, Justin, that you were receiving some correspondence about in terms of timing and Mr. Grubik probably can also provide some context on perhaps timing modifications that have occurred on Lincolnstown Road.
Yes.
Well, not only that, actually, I'd go a little further to change the signalization there. If you travel the length of Route 39 from Front Street all the way to Hershey Park, I believe that's the only light that doesn't have some sort of turning signalization. The only other one, and someone can help me if they know, is Piketown. The light at Piketown.
By the high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, I think that one may too, now that I'm thinking about it. But so it becomes very problematic to try and turn left on the Far Green Road from Lincolnstown at certain times of the day. You're waiting there and you're waiting there and waiting there because there is no arrow. Even at Deer Path, where I enter a lot of times, there's an arrow there. And it really helps to move the flow of traffic. So I would, we basically got correspondence from PennDOT saying it's not our issue, but it is their issue because, while the municipality owns the signal, we have to get their approval for any modification. So it is on them. And so that is what I'm seeking. And Bob, feel free to elaborate.
I would recommend that we take a look at the timing, the current timing, but also we do have relatively current data from traffic information that was generated with the development of the Blue Ridge Village in Lower Paxton and also Susquehanna Union Green here in Susquehanna.
And we can use that as some of the base. We don't have to go back to square one. In other words. And utilize those traffic generation models to come up with some suggestions for improving the traffic flow at Far Green and Littlestown. But you're correct. That's been an ongoing issue for years. And what a lot of people don't understand is that, there's only 60 seconds in a minute. And when you start taking time away from one leg of an intersection, you're affecting the other legs of the intersection. And we try, and there is a proposal that is part of the Route 39 corridor study to be able to have a more coordinated traffic signal system from Front Street all the way out through Susquehanna, Lower Paxton, all the way almost down to Hershey Park. In the Hanovers, yeah. So that's what I would recommend, to see where we are right now and see what could be done in order to mitigate.
It's a big outlier. I mean, as I was thinking about this issue, I noticed that it's literally the only light without an arrow, I believe, in the entire stretch. So just wanted to bring that to your attention as well.
Okay, so no media action on that, Chief?
That's a HRG issue.
Right, so I think at this point, what we would be seeking is authorization from the board to have HRG further evaluate this, consistent with what Bob just kind of articulated.
Motion.
Second.
Comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Steve, do you want to mention I know you said you didn't want to, but then I don't want to prolong this, but the left turn movement from Sturbridge onto Linglestown Road and the backing up that's occurring at that intersection?
It was just the timing of the light. But I spoke briefly to Chief, and I'm not going to add that to a traffic study. Thank you very much, though, Dave. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Anybody else have any traffic study?
I have two questions, not traffic studies. Chief, I don't know. I think we had discussed at one time in relation to Montrose. It's already posted for the weight limits for the truck traffic. If we can, I think on Parkway, they lowered the sign, so it was more visible. And
Yes.
added reflectors, whatever they did there, I think it's helping.
I went down this week because we are getting so much truck traffic on Montrose.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be submitting a request to Nate to improve the signage. I wanted to go down personally, look at the signage.
Okay.
There's really only two signs there, and they are small. There's
Yeah.
one off of Front Street and then there's one off of 6th Street.
Right.
So I think we can improve that. So I'm going to be definitely putting in a request to Nate on that. And Mr. Kratzer and I spoke about that this week.
All right, thank you. And your officers have done so much work too with the service stations there.
Yes.
And, getting them to comply with our ordinances.
Yes.
The one that's the 3400 block of 6, though, it's back to the same condition. It's like the surrounding streets. And I have a question, and I don't know if this would be for you or for Dave, but it appears that they may be running like a towing service where they need to store the cars kind of long-term. I mean, do you need a special license for that? Because they don't have the room for it, obviously. So again, today on Hurlock, there's the tow truck with vehicle on the back of it, and on 6th Street. It's just constant. I mean, you send the officers down and they straighten it up, but then they're back to like parking in the whole neighborhood again.
Okay. I'll send the cars down tonight. If there's any violations, we'll cite them, but I don't know if there's anything special needed for the tow service per se, not to my knowledge.
Yeah, I know. I think you'd need like the space to tow the vehicles, right? That you
Yes.
couldn't, I mean, to store them. You couldn't store
Yeah.
them on public streets.
No.
Because they'd solve their problem if they just cleared the abandoned vehicles out of the lot.
Yeah.
But I don't know why they won't. But
Okay. I'll send cars down tonight and we will definitely revisit that. Yep.
Traffic studies?
Since we have the chief at the podium, can I ask an unrelated question?
Sure.
Thank you.
Is this about the
Chief,
Phillies?
Because
they need a closer. I'm just saying.
No, you've answered this question before, but I'll ask it again, maybe give you a little opportunity for commercial, but how should checks be made out for the police dog fund again?
Susquehanna Township Police K-9 Fund.
K9. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You want to update us on any of that or?
Well, the two dogs have been ordered. The training is set for starting in September, 5 weeks for the two officers. It's going to be Officer Tyler Perry and Officer David Yannick will be the first two canine officers. We're getting the cars, you know, when Mr. Grubik references, you know,
Supply chain issues.
yes, it's hurting our car changeovers. We're really being delayed on our car changeovers because waiting on equipment. So and the two canine cars are part of those changeovers. So I mean, we'll be good, but we would ordinarily be much further along in our car changeovers by now. But they're just sitting, waiting for those parts to arrive. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I wanted to clarify was mentioned earlier by Mr. Rogowski, in case anybody had a question, because he noted reportable and non-reportable accidents. And as the commissioner knows, that is a PennDOT designation, and we have the data on both. But so the difference is, to be a reportable accident, it must include either death, towing, or injury. That designates it as a reportable accident in Pennsylvania. And what that means is it goes from about a 2-sheet report to an 8-sheet report, and that report has to go to PennDOT. So PennDOT, when you hear PennDOT accident statistics, that does not include non-reportable accidents. But let's understand that you could have a formidable non-reportable accident where no one's injured and the car can barely drive away, but it can drive away. That's still just a non-reportable accident. So just because that's being studied there, I wanted you to know that.
That's the data you're providing though, correct? You're providing non-reportable
We
accidents.
technically gave them everything that, and then they'll just double check, but yeah. But they would not get non-reportable from PennDOT.
Chief, you reminded me, I have one other question you're talking about, because we talked about non-reportables at Front in Montrose. And one of the residents had asked here tonight about the possibility of a restricted left turn from
I wrote it
Front
down.
Street. Okay, you
I
got
did.
it. You're all over it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, I can issue that. Yep,
Thank you.
that's all I have. We're good.
No more?
Yeah, just at least need a closer. That's it.
Thank you. Amen.
No one there. All right, moving on to our final next business. I had a report that Trish Pacifico resigning effective August 31st as chair of the zoning hearing board. Good public servant, very diligent, did as well. So it's zoning hearing board night. But now we have to find another member of the zoning hearing board. We do have an alternate, would also be welcome. Sign up. We have 2 candidates so far. Seem to be very well qualified. But it is posted on the township website, and anybody who wishes to apply, look there or contact your favorite commissioner, Harry Rothrock, and express your interest. So that said, the process will go on. We're looking at first week in August.
Yeah, so we
possibly interview candidates.
Yeah, on the website, it requests that expressions of interest be provided by July the 30th, which is a Friday. And then, as President Lynch had indicated, I believe the board or a portion of the board would conduct interviews either that first week of August or the second week of August.
In the packet here is something that's not on the menu or the agenda, which I believe is the reported bills paid. There it is. Commissioner comments. Anybody have any?
Oh, yes, I have one. I'm so sorry. I have to say this. I'm sorry. I have to say happy birthday to my husband. It is his birthday today, and he's very appreciative of my dedication to the residents in my ward. I'm here on his birthday. So happy birthday, Joe. There.
Happy
birthday, Joe. Happy birthday, Joe.
I wanted to express my appreciation.
You should have invited them to the meeting, Commissioner.
Well, I should thank my son. My son took him out to dinner, so that was nice.
We'd be happy to vouch for the length of this meeting as well, when he says,
Meeting
Jody,
was adjourned at
where were you?
11:34.
You were supposed to be here for cake too.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, yeah, who prolonged the meeting?
The
Not
chief
me.
did.
Yeah.
Hi, chief. Any other commissioner comments? All right. Yeah. Other business, no. Report of bills paid.
Mr. President, I move to adopt the report of bills paid in the amount of $1,114,687. 68 cents. Dramatic effect.
There you go. Fill the drum.
Second?
There's a second. Questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Second. Motion
Nice job, boy.
second to adjourn. I think we're all in favor, right?
Aye.
Aye.
We are out of here. Thank you.
Night, John boy. I could get used to this staying at home.